Hey, welcome to Living Deeper Lives, the podcast that helps you to live a more deeper life, a more meaningful life, a life of freedom and purpose. I'm your host, Steven Webb, and there's a new podcast every Monday that will help you with the pointers towards more freedom. This week I'm talking about core values, the underlying fundamental values of who you are beyond your roles of what you do in life and beyond your opinions and belief. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to my daughter in the kitchen one day, and she was going through a particular hard time, and like she is at the moment. And we were talking about like the tree of life and how we form the ego and how we form who we are. And I said like the trunk of the tree is the roles we play. Maybe mum, dad, daughter, or doctor, fireman, nurse, builder, just dustbin man, whatever. That's the trunk of the tree. And then you've got the early part of the branches. That's your beliefs, that could be your religion or your politics. And then you've got the outer branches and the leaves. That's all your opinions and your likes and your dislikes. And then we were talking about core values, the underlying values below all that. And we were talking about what they might be and do we actually use them? And if you talk to anybody and you say like, well, what are your core values? And they'll say, well, I've got integrity, I've got caring, I'm understanding. And then if you really ask them, do you really bring those core values to every role you have in life? And we thought about it and we really don't. We don't develop these core values and these fundamental values enough, in my opinion. We know they're there. We want them. We expect other people to have them. And we get really offended and we take it personally if somebody else doesn't live up to the core values we think they should have. If they lie to us and they break the core value of honesty, it really does trigger us. But when we turn it around on ourselves, how much do we live up to our core values? It's made me think over the last few weeks, a couple of weeks since that conversation, what are my core values? And I'd like to think that I'm caring, I'm understanding. I'd like to think I got integrity. But then I thought, yes, I may have those, but how much of it do I really bring to every aspect of life? I'm a city councillor. When I sit on a council meeting, do I bring those core values to that meeting? Do I bring them to when I say something? I have carers. When I'm with my carers, do I bring those core values to that? And what about when my daughter's here or when I'm at my parents', when I'm listening to my mum? And very often it's very difficult when we're with family, and especially our parents. And I always go back to what Mother Teresa says. I think it's Jack Cornfield always says this as well. If you think you're enlightened, go and spend a week with your parents. But when I go up and spend like a few hours with my mum, am I really showing up as love and understanding? So I wanted to dive deeper, and I want you to consider what your fundamental values and which ones of those that you will not budge from. And I think if we develop these, the tree becomes rooted into the ground. You could say they're the roots of the tree, these fundamental values. And we don't worry about losing our branches, or we don't worry about anybody disagreeing with our beliefs or moving from role to role, as long as we've got the core values intact. They're the fundamental building blocks that everything are built on. The weather can take away the tree and the storms could almost knock it over. But if the roots are intact, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about life so much. You don't have to worry about someone wiling you up the wrong way, because we're going to show up as these values anyway. And also, what values do we need to develop a little more? And if you think about going back to when you're first born, do you have these true values? Well, no. We learn to have empathy. We develop empathy as we grow. We develop caring as we grow. A baby doesn't care. A baby doesn't have empathy. It's not lying there thinking, oh, I wonder if my mum's tired. Perhaps I'll just lie here and be quiet and let my mum have a bit more sleep. They don't have that ability when they're born. It goes at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If they don't get those core needs met, they're going to cry. They're not going to care who they upset, or they're not going to care whether they bring understanding along with that crying. But as we get older, there's no excuse really. When you move beyond your teens and you hit adulthood, you have your own children, there really is no excuse for not looking at these core values and developing them. Looking at what is important to you, how you would like other people to show up in your life. Integrity and honesty is like the utmost importance to you. Are you living from that place as well? Do you bring that true values to every conversation you have? Do you bring them to every reply and post on Facebook? Do you bring them to the job you do? Do you bring them to every conversation you have with your family when a friend phones you? I doubt we do. I'll just be honest, I don't. I've got to somehow almost come back and pinch myself and go, do you know what? You really weren't that caring. You say you're caring and loving, Stevie, but you really weren't in that instance. And I remember Kemba coming back here one day and she said something to me. And I just went off on it. I just went off on this rampage of, I don't really shout, but I can kind of go on a little bit. And I did that to her and she stood there and she took it. And I kept going on and on and on. And then I finished and I said, and I'm done now and I'm finished. She stood there and she looked up and said, well, that wasn't very zen of you, was it? And it's funny because I was trying to develop my zen side. This is about 3-4 years ago now. I was becoming more peaceful. You know, I'm very zen now. I'm very stoic. But in that moment, I did not bring that to that conversation. And this is what I'm talking about, you know. So I want you to consider yourself, what is important for other people to show up in your life as? And there's so many core values. Let me know in the comments below, or let me know on my Facebook page what core values are important to you. And are you working on yours? Do you really bring them to every aspect of your life? Say if one of your core values is to be loving. Now then, whether you're a doctor or a binman or a gardener or a president, it really doesn't matter what your job is in life in that time. Are you bringing that loving core value to that job? And the same as if you're in a debate or having a conversation, or you're in church on Sunday, are you bringing the core value that you say you are to that belief and that day and that moment? I think if we were perfectly honest, we could do better. You know, C- could do better. And as we work on it more, and every time we shake someone's hands or give them a hug, if we think about these core values, we can live from them a little more. And I think it benefits us because it'll come back around on us. And then also identifying the ones where we demand from others, but we don't show up as ourselves. If we're really honest about it. And one of mine is integrity. I like to think I've got lots of integrity. But what is integrity? Integrity is you promise something and whether you deliver or not. That's one of the values of integrity, I believe. And I promise a lot, and sometimes, quite often, okay, nearly all the time, I can feel my inner dialogue going as I'm saying this, I let people down. And it's not because I don't mean to deliver, it's because I overestimate what I'm able to do because I'm paralyzed and my fingers are paralyzed. Just editing a podcast takes me 3 or 4 times longer than it would somebody else. And I tend to forget, although I've been in a wheelchair now, I've been paralyzed since I was 18. My mind forgets at times, and I still think I can do what an able-bodied person does. And I forget things take longer. So I tend to promise things, and I don't deliver very often. But integrity is taking that into account and going, well, look, if I'm going to live with integrity, I'm only going to promise what I'm going to deliver. And that goes as being a parent, as, I'm a dad. That goes in that role of being a dad, or in the role of the teacher in the Inner Peace Academy that I run. And if anybody's interested, go to stevenwebb.com, spelled with a V, not a PH. And you can have a look about the academy there where you can join, where I help people have a lot more in life. But yeah, that's what I want you to think about this week is, what core values do you have? What ones are you really good at remembering? And which ones do you need to work on more? And it will create a stability in your life. And there's a freedom to knowing that your core values are not going to be compromised, that they can chop your branches off, they can interfere with your tree, they can do all the other things, but they're not going to rock your roots and your foundation of who you are. So work out your core values, work out your underlying roots of your internal tree. I'm Steven Webb, and I help you to go from to I think that's the best way of explaining it. I give you a little inner peace and a little calmness about your life. And if I help you, head over to my page and buy me a coffee would be absolutely awesome, and thank you. That supports the work I do. And there you can sign up to a monthly, like $3 a month, and that will help me to get things edited and help me to speed things up and help me to deliver. And that, I guess, that helps my integrity as well. So yeah, head over to my page and you can click the link and buy me a coffee. Support the work I do. Or you can head to the website supportsteven.com. Thank you. Really appreciate your time. Time is the most precious thing we have, and spending the last 10, 12 minutes with me is I really appreciate it. And take care and have a good week. I will be back next Monday for a new episode of Living Deeper Lives podcast. Thank you.